I'm back, I'm Gertie Rude, back again, a Friday mood. Well, here I am. I thought I'd do a reaction to this charity investigation because I haven't done anything about these two grifters for a while, have I? So I thought we'd start with this. Yet another charity scam. So should we just jump in and see what's happening?
This week in particular, this past few days,
right.
You and I have spoken twice. We spoke on Monday. We spoke for your fabulous podcast, Recollections May Vary, on Tuesday. And here we are again. It just strikes me that even
It's Kinsey ORMV then? Because they've both got the same name for their podcast thingy channels, haven't they? It's two of them.
Harry and Meghan standards.
That'll
What a
be the next
ridiculously turbulent week this has been. Let's talk about what's a kind of new development that we haven't really gone into.
This griff.
The fallout from the Charity Commission's report on Harry's charity, Sentebale. Which he basically flounced out of, furiously denying he's a racist bully. But the
There's nothing like flouncing out of a meeting where they accuse you of being a racist bully, is there? So that kind of proves you're not a racist bully, doesn't it, when you behave like that? Anyway,
Charity Commission, whilst not commenting on allegations that Harry, this is by the chair lady, the chair of the charity, Dr. Sophie Chandorka, she said Harry and the other trustees, let's be fair, were basically racist, sexist bullies. She accused them of being guilty of something called misogynoir, which is prejudice against black ladies.
Prejudice against black women. Earth calling Jupiter. I think we might have a problem. Houston, we've definitely got a problem. Let me just turn my potatoes down. I'm doing some lovely new potatoes with fresh garden mint. Let me just turn them down because they started to bubble just at the wrong time. You know how that happens. So, yeah, well, there you go. So, I'd say I totally, if you look back on my back catalogue, I said that all along. There is that to it. And also, Sophie isn't she South African? Or from Botswana? Somewhere like that, anyway. So, obviously, Sophie is like what one might describe as an ethnically African lady. Very well educated. I think it was Oxford, darling. I'm not sure. She got an honorary degree, doctorate from there. Something like that. But anyway, she's very successful and educated. Probably knows Africa better than, say, him. And there's that to it. And his idea of the charity, it was a vehicle to self-aggrandise himself and say, look at me, look at me, look at me. And then he had his yearly polo matches, didn't he? Things like that. And Sophie's idea was that this charity had stagnated at that level. And he was kind of white knighting, wasn't he, rather than actually doing anything. So the charity was on his terms rather than the terms of what the charity and the service users of the charity needed the charitable organisation to be more dynamic and be a bit more with the times, because Sentebale's been going a good 20 years now. So it's that to it. And obviously the white knighting situation, I believe that there's issues around why not develop the charity so that it's self-sufficient, so that maybe the service users are creating products for the charity and selling the products around the world, maybe. Like they make trinkets and bits and bobs, don't they, to do with their region. Where is Sentebale? Where is that charity? I can't even remember where it is. I know it's in Africa anyway. Is it Botswana? I don't think it is. But anyway, there we go. Let's just jump on.
Black females, as she is. And she didn't like Harry's colonial method of fundraising, which is basically posh polo events in Florida. Now, Harry has said that this report completely exonerates him. It doesn't at all. It doesn't at all.
Where have we heard that? Charity scams, and then they come out and say, I've been completely exonerated, when nothing like that's happened. It's the province of ne'er-do-wells, isn't it? They hide behind charity scams. Yes, they do. We know.
It says that the trouble with this charity is that it was badly mismanaged. It allowed a damaging boardroom battle.
I think a lot of the money as well went on expenses, if you get me, for the people that were doing all these charitable things. And the real, as I'd say, service users of the charities were just getting the crumbs off the table and existed at the largesse of the people that headed the charity, like Prince, whatever his name is, Harry, And the other one, I can't remember, is another prince as well.
To be played out in the public eye, and basically unravelled due to dysfunctionalism, really.
Right, yeah.
So he's the guy in charge. It's his charity. He does stand accused of ruining what he once called his life's work, which was to help the child victims of HIV who've been left orphaned by that.
But his idea of helping was just doing a fundraising, bleeding polo match once a year with having the multi-billionaires or whatever playing polo in Malibu or somewhere, and that was like him being largelicious. And again, it's about, like I've just said, white knighting and giving them the crumbs off the table rather than what they need. So Sophie was brought in to oversee the charity and probably update it, and what she saw was a shit show. But I believe, and I've always believed, that this over here, Centobali, furore, is actually a false construct. It is a lot of smoke and mirrors to cover up for the real stuff, which is the African Parks scam. That is quite horrific, because I've read the some of the accounts and depositions of the victims of that. So I think they get onto that a bit later on.
Condition HIV throughout Africa. So it's a marvellous charity. He co-founded it with his mum. Now it lies unravelled and in ruins, and he bears a serious amount of the blame. But of course, no,
he won't.
It's not his fault.
No.
Nothing is ever his fault. No. So he's flounced out. Nothing to do with me. Blaming everyone else. He's petulant and I would say immature in this regard. Wouldn't you?
Definitely.
Well, before the comment section yells at us, he co-founded this for his mother with another prince. They both co-founded this charity together to honor their mothers. So this was post Princess Diana that he founded this charity. But the Charity Commission said, okay, well...
It's really odd when you get really, really poor countries in Africa, and yet they've got extensive royal families and princes and kings and this, that, and the other hangers on in it. Yeah, we basically fund them. There's a particular country, it's the Democratic Republic of the Congo, maybe one of similar, where we give them so much aid, and basically it just goes to the royal family. Cut a very long story short.
As a whole, we can't identify a pattern of bullying. We can't identify this harassment as a regular occurrence, but it is not our job to investigate individual issues.
No.
So Dr. Sophie Chandauka and her team have said, well, then we will find the right place to investigate the harassment that she feels like she's had, that she says was aggressive towards her by Prince Harry and some of those other members that stepped down.
Yeah, I quite believe that. I quite believe that, because they were bringing their elite Western world privileged sort of thing that they've got going on to a piss poor bleeding country with a charity of aged children. And Sophie weren't having a bundle of it, was she? She weren't having it. No, she just, they don't, I don't blame her. I wouldn't. So she sort of set herself up as an easy person to bully, I would say. And they go on to explain a bit more, but we know the background of this. Do you remember the cup at the polo match, Meghan, and pushing them out the way and just elbows, and you know what she's like. We all know what she's like. We all know the Meghan Markle.
With the board. So the Charity Commission said, look, we aren't finding an overall theme of bullying, but it's not our job to investigate individual incidents. And
I think the whole... Sorry, darling. I think the whole situation, especially since the Queen's died, probably it started before, because I think as she got into her 90s, they both did, her and Philip. The rest of the family started to take over more. But it's like the scene in, what's it called, Wizard of Oz, when they get to see behind the curtain. And it's just an old man operating the whole vibe in it, some eccentric old geezer. So there's that to it. And I think this is what Harry and the Marklet have done to the royal family. You can see behind the curtain now. And they're no better than they bloody well should be, really. They're no better than they just think there's something else and they're not.
Incidents, we found out was at the polo tournament that Serena Williams appeared at, where Dr. Sophie says that she approached Meghan and asked her to come speak to some of the sponsors, and Meghan was very dismissive towards her. And then there was a bit of a tug-of-war on stage.
Because I think they gave her the job being a black African woman. It's their virtue signalling. Look at us, we've employed a black African lady. Then when it didn't sort of like, she wasn't kowtowing to them, and they didn't even at that stage show her the respect of the position that they'd employed her for. In fact, it was the other way. They sort of belittled her because after all they'd employed her, wasn't she lucky, sort of thing. When really she was the de facto, well, she wasn't even the de facto, she was the official figurehead, being the chairman person or whatever of the board of the charity of Centre Barley. And she should have been there to present the cup, not the marklet. So there's that too. We've all been here before with that story. Let's go, darling.
When it came to photos that were taken of Prince Harry and Meghan and Dr. Sophie Chandaka.
Yeah, so awkward.
And afterwards, the stories that were circulating were that Meghan was this aggressor on stage and manhandling Dr. Sophie.
Well, I mean, she can deny all she wants, but we got the visuals on it. We might not be able to hear the audio, but our eyes don't lie. We can see what we can see. And it was atrocious. As I say, she was the leader, the head of the chairperson of the charity, and deserved a certain amount of respect. But it's the market. I mean, not being funny, I ain't being rude or anything, but that is trailer bleeding trash every day of the week. And Harry is just, oh dear. Just because they're royal doesn't mean they're gentlemen.
To her and asked her, and she says later threatened her to stand up for Meghan, and she said, I refuse to be a part of the Sussex's PR machine. And she did feel like she was disrespected by Meghan, so it wouldn't have been true for her to come out and defend Meghan Markle.
Good girl, because it's rare to find people that don't kiss the bleeding coattails of the royal family. And you can tell by their behaviour and their self-entitlement that they're used to it. It's like anything could be covered up, anything, I am so-and-so and you will defend me and you should be honoured that I'm asking you to defend me. It's that vibe. And, I mean, it's outdated from somebody that stood there in 2020 and said, oh, just call me Harry. We want to have private lives. Oh, my God, I love that speech. Deary me, if only it were true.
Harry apparently saw in the mail today by the respected royal editor Rebecca English saying that Harry has spent even now is often on the phone into the small hours of the night shouting and screaming, saying that his charity is being subjected to a hostile takeover. He's devastated by this, but frankly,
but frankly, because he's going to use that emotive language because, as I say, he had that as a vehicle for revenue for himself and for self-aggrandisement. Because children dying of AIDS in Africa don't really benefit from some sort of billionaire jolly polo thing where they beat their horses half to death and kick a ball around the gaff. He gets the kudos for that. And he lives off the largesse of that. And obviously I think he also can claim expenses off the charity for whatever. And as I say, probably give them a few crumbs. So, it's BS. It's like a lot of these charitable people, they're just crazy, aren't they? Narcissists. Sociopaths and narcissists, that's what I reckon.
He's done what he always does in adversity. Yeah. He's had a hissy fit, he's stormed off.
He's seen people's pitiful plight and people's poverty, and he's used it as a vehicle to not only self-aggrandise himself, but for financial remuneration. Because after all, he loves a game of polo. So now he's got a reason to play polo. It justifies him playing polo. He's doing this marvellous thing. And he can stand back and get all the slaps on the back because he's raised all this money for the charity. And I think there's a little hint of that in Griftus as well, isn't there? Where they sort of, sign off their expenses against the Griftus charity and then stay in the ambassador's suite or something at some posh hotel. You get me? It's this... But... in fairness, it's not only them. There's a lot of people involved in charity that behave exactly like him. Even if it's on a lower scale, it's the same thing. It's so boring. That's why I never give a penny to charity. If I know someone needs some money, I'll give them the bleeding money myself, okay? I don't give it to somebody to give to them because they're going to keep bleeding 99p of it and give them a penny of every pound you donate. Right,
and blamed everyone else. I would suggest if this charity was so
important...
Charity
starts at home, and don't be giving anybody off the computer money for anything that's scamming you. Just don't. They're absolutely fine. They don't need your money.
To him, and it is an important charity. If it's so important to him, he should have stuck around. He should have sorted the problems out. It's not about him. It's not about Sophie Chandorka. It's about the children they're trying to help. He hasn't helped their cause at all with his petulance, has he?
Well, and I do believe in the charities, or in the commission's report.
Go on.
They acknowledge that Harry fires the first shots publicly at Dr. Sophie Chandorka by going to the Times and telling the Times, hey, I'm stepping down, and this is why, and being very accusatory.
Yeah, he did that, but I think he did that because of the wife. She had her nose put out of joint. I think that nose has had enough bleeding nose lift in it again. So that's something you need to do quite a bit if you're doing the old, you know what I mean, up there. And that happened. So she did have a veritable nose, slightly even more out of joint. And so obviously she mobilised Harry, and he would not have gone to the Times without her agreement. Not even tacit agreement. It would have been her entire agreement, if not telling him to do it. So, yeah. And it's all very unprofessional and very lowbrow, really.
Towards her at the very... And then Sophie... honestly just goes on TV to defend herself, is really what the result was.
Yeah, but then people like that, they see defence as attack, don't they? So they can do what they want to you because they're your victim. They, you know, it's a pity power play. I'm the victim, but I'm actually doing the perpetrating. But no, I'm the victim. And if you just so much as move your hand in front of your face to defend yourself, they will scream that you've moved your hand and you were going to hit them or strike them or something. That is a metaphor.
TV to defend herself. So the Charity Commission said, look, you have jeopardized the future of this charity and its brand by having this fistfight in public. And you've embarrassed the charity and the brand. And they did feel like both parties were at fault there.
Yeah, definitely.
But like I would even say, okay, well, here's a lost opportunity. You know, that's sad. Call up African Parks Charity and figure them out next, because African Parks Charity is the next one to go on his list unless he can figure that out. And he's tried to avoid all of the scandal. People in the locals.
I think he's actually ratcheted up the one over here to, as I've said earlier, disguise and obfuscate and do a bit of smoke and mirrors on the real horror story. And if you go into it, it is a real horror story. And the fact that any of our royal family that are funded by taxpayers, I might say, when you hear that they've inherited this money and they've inherited that money, well, when you actually follow the money trail, the people that gave them the money were piss poor when they were first members of the royal family. So where they get their money from, I'm only just putting that out there. So yeah, and it's a shit show. It's disgusting what's going on in the African parks. But there's a whole nother agenda, and that would take another video, so I won't get into it.
Used some of their rangers at African Parks Charity of sexual assault, torture, waterboarding, attacking these people that have used this land to seek medicines and to feed their families
because it's a
for
land
hundreds
grab,
of years.
And basically they're calling it a conservation area, but there's some sort of agenda, Africa 2030 agenda, where they're going to move all the indigenous people, we've been here before, haven't we, off of their land and use it under the guise of conservation for basically a happy place for them rather than the indigenous people. That is my opinion. That is just what I'm saying. It might not be true.
There's, African Parks is the next one that should be on all of our radars, because they are being so secretive about that investigation and what Tony Blair's wife, Sherry Blair, found out in her independent investigation of them.
Well, I would believe
she just said, it's bad, but we're not allowed to tell you what. And they're just saying...
It is bad, because I've read quite a bit about it. You can Google it and go into it. It's horrific.
Acknowledge that it's bad, we're going to straighten it out. And hence, Prince Harry, quiet. Not saying about it.
Yeah.
To go back to the Charity Commission's report on Centre Barley, as I say,
also under the ground. Sorry, darling. Hang on. I think under the ground as well in these places, if they can just, call them conservation areas or whatever, and just by stealth sequestrate the lands. I think their ultimate agenda might be not so much what's on the land, but what's underneath the land.
It isn't the Charity Commission's job to rule or deliver verdicts on allegations of racism, bullying, etc. As you say, Dr. Sophie Chandorka has said, well, in that case, we'll pursue those allegations and those claims elsewhere. So this isn't over for Prince Harry. But what it did pinpoint, as I said, bad management, a damaging boardroom battle that was allowed to play out in the public eye.
I think as it stagnated, it had gone along in its own sort of lane for far too long, and it hadn't sort of, as I say, been dynamic. It hadn't grown. It had just stayed in that same old track the whole time. And obviously the economy, the way it's gone from 20 years ago, probably playing a few polo matches wasn't really cutting the mustard.
And also, a serious lack of leadership. Who's the main leader of this charity? Surely. Well,
I mean, the de facto ruler of it before they employed Sophie was in the pocket of him anyway, and he was the figurehead. And if you think who runs him, that's basically where everything gets to a shit show, doesn't it? So, I mean, it's a wonder anybody lets him run a bath, let alone a charity. But there you go, it is what it is. He is a royal spermatozoa, you know, darlings.
But he also shares that role with the other prince.
But never mind the other guy. Harry is the leader.
I know, but
it.
But
there's no what do you call it? There's no thing on the other prince, is there? Shade on him. It's only Harry that we hear about. Is something along the lines of him. And as I say, if you think who operates Harry, you know.
Harry, this other guy founded it too. I'm sorry.
Well, I have no interest in him. I'm interested in Harry.
I know, but if
it's funny how that it's only since he's been married to that person that this has all come on top for him. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, Harry is the leader of this charity. He's the figurehead of it. Yeah. Sophie Chandorka.
I would argue that he's not, though. He's not there.
Are we going to exonerate him? Are we?
Actually there.
Are we going to exonerate him?
No, I'm just saying if we're
but
going
that's
to.
Why you should, but if he's not
there,
there, that's why you shouldn't be the figurehead of it. Why is he having any input into it when all he does is play a few bleeding polo matches a couple of times a year or whatever he does? You know, and then gets a few photo opportunities. He'll go over and get some photos taken and this, that and the other.
Same on leadership. We have to acknowledge there are two founders. There are two royals involved here. And both of them went after Dr. Sophie Chandorka. And we have to acknowledge that they're both guilty of going after Sophie Chandorka. They both, decided that they were going to quit at the same time and try to pressure her and humiliate her and discredit her. And it backfired. And now both of these guys are out of a job and they've lost a charity that they both started to honor their mothers.
Well, at least the prince is still in Africa. The Prince Harry, this is one of Sophie's problems, or one of her complaints, that when Harry buggered off to America, when he left Britain, stopped being a frontline royal, she said, that was very bad for fundraising, it was very bad for the charity because he became such a distant figure.
But also it was the reputationally, because he was going after the royal family.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So,
he was going
after
the one thing that gave him any credibility on this planet, because without them, he would literally just be a bald ginger geezer, wouldn't he? And that whole thing wouldn't go out with him.
She said that was bad for the charity, and then he's having that damaging row.
Honest to God, if it wasn't for his bloodline, he'd still be a virgin, wouldn't he? He would be, let's be honest.
Royal family.
Come on, ladies.
Meghan's not doing the whole situation any favours at all. So Meghan, or rather Dr. Sophie Chandorka, is saying that him going to America, him distancing himself from the royal family, had a devastating effect on the charity.
Of course it did.
He became a distant figure. She also didn't like Kinsey.
Yeah.
She didn't like his favoured form of fundraising, which was basically a bunch of white people
there you go,
having posh polo events in Florida. She thought that smacked of a kind of patronising colonialism.
Yes, of course it did. Well, it's not even, I mean, that's a motive word, colonialism, and it's easy for us to sort of say that, and maybe for her to use that anecdotal sort of historical reference to pinpoint what she was trying to articulate. But I would say if you cut through the shite, right, what you've got is a piss poor nation, and you've got an overwhelming amount of children over there that, for one thing and another, which I won't go into, which I can't go into on YouTube, arrive on this planet in very early years with the HIV positive diagnosis, yeah? And a load of guys that have got wads of money playing polo on the opposite side of the world a few times a year doesn't really, ring true, does it? It's not, it's a little bit ick and patronising, and as I said, it's a vehicle more to excuse him playing, or justify him playing polo, and also probably because he'll claim expenses, he can play polo and it doesn't take a big whack out of his income because he's money conscious, isn't he? Well, he would be with her, wouldn't he? So there's that to it, and then he can offset his expenses and enjoy his hobby whilst also getting a sort of virtual slap on the back for his charitable endeavours type of thing. That is what I've always seen it as, so we'll go from there.
And you can see where she's coming from. She wants the operation, the centre of the operation of this African charity, to be in Africa, not in Florida.
Be about the children.
Funded by rich white men playing polo, drinking champagne.
Yeah, exactly.
She didn't like that look.
I mean, wasn't it sponsored by Moe Chandon as well? I think it was, or one of those. Yeah, I'm sure it was, or the other one. Can't remember the other one. Bollinger. No, I think it was Moe. I saw the adverts. Anyway, so I'm fed up, you're fed up, and it's Friday. I'll probably come back tomorrow and do gin and skins. What do you reckon? Do you want your tarot cards read? Do you want to know what you've got in store for you for next week on the Voodoo highways and byways? Yes, you never know what's going to happen, do you, darlings? Anything could happen. You never know, the Mark Clip might turn up with her new snores. There you go, bye-bye now.